The sun dipped low over the dusty horizon of Nova Terra colony, casting long shadows across the metal and glass structures. The wind carried a faint hum, almost like whispers from the far edges of the planet. Liam, a shy young man with nervous eyes and a hunched posture, walked slowly along the colony's outer perimeter. He carried a crate of supplies, his hands trembling slightly as he thought about the strange rumors he had heard earlier that day. Stories of enormous creatures wandering the outskirts, creatures that could crush a human without a second thought. As he neared the ridge, a sudden movement caught his eye. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow stretching unnaturally over the rocks. But then he saw her, towering above the trees, a giantess alien with glowing, amber eyes that seemed to pierce his soul. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal, and her long, elegant limbs carried a strength that made Liam's stomach tighten with fear. She was trapped, her massive foot caught between two jagged boulders, and she looked at him with a mixture of desperation and pain. Liam froze. He had heard about giant aliens before, but never had he seen one up close. His heart raced. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide in the safety of the colony's walls. The giantess stretched her long arm toward him, her fingers trembling, as if asking for help. Liam's mind spun. What if she's dangerous? What if she attacks? For a moment, he imagined the headlines. Human crushed by alien in outer forest. The thought made him shiver. 2 days ago, another worker had gone missing near the forest's edge. Liam had dismissed it as an accident, but now the warning seemed clear. Helping the giantess could be a death sentence. I can't, Liam whispered, his voice barely audible over the whistling wind. He set the crate down, backing away slowly. The giantess's amber eyes widened, and a low, almost mournful sound rumbled from her throat. It was not a roar, not a threat. It was a plea, but Liam's fear held him frozen. The ground beneath the giantess shook slightly as she struggled to free herself, and a rock slipped from the ridge, tumbling down toward Liam. He jumped back, heart pounding, and turned. He ran, not daring to look back. Behind him, the cries of the giantess echoed through the empty valley. Something about those sounds burned in his memory, a haunting melody that would not leave him. The forest seemed alive tonight, whispering secrets he could not understand. Liam did not notice the glowing footprints left behind by the giantess, each one pulsing faintly with light, as if marking her path through the shadows. By the time he reached the colony gates, Liam's hands were shaking so badly he could barely punch the access code. He leaned against the cold metal wall, breathing heavily, trying to push the image of the giantess from his mind. It's just an alien. I did the right thing. She could have killed me, he told himself. But deep down, a small, nagging thought whispered otherwise. The colony was quiet tonight, eerily quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if listening. Liam glanced toward the ridge, half expecting to see her still trapped, staring at him. But there was nothing. Just the forest, dark and thick, hiding secrets he could not see. That night, Liam could not sleep. Every shadow in his small quarters seemed alive. Every whisper of wind carried the echo of amber eyes, pleading, accusing, and haunting all at once. His dreams were filled with flashes of enormous hands reaching for him, of glowing footprints stretching across the planet, and of the faint, mournful rumble of the giantess' voice. He woke in a cold sweat, the memory of his refusal stabbing at him like a sharp knife. What if she needed me? What if I just condemned her? The thought made his stomach twist. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was too late to help now. But even as he worked in the colony, arranging supplies and counting inventory, the image of those glowing eyes never left him. Outside, beyond the colony walls, the wind shifted. A shadow moved silently through the forest. Liam did not notice it, but the giantess was still alive. She had freed herself with great effort, her body battered but determined. And as she vanished into the dark trees, her eyes never left the colony. Somewhere in that forest, she was waiting, watching, and Liam, though unaware, had already set the stage for a reckoning that would come sooner than he could imagine. By morning, the forest was quiet again, but the sense of something ominous lingered in the air. Liam stepped out of his quarters, trying to focus on the daily routine. But the whispers in the wind, the echoes of amber eyes, and the haunting glow of footprints in his mind reminded him that some mistakes could not be ignored. Some refusals had consequences far beyond what he could imagine. And deep in the shadowed forest, the giantess waited, patient and powerful, knowing that the shy young man would soon learn the cost of his fear. The next morning, Terra colony buzzed with routine. Workers moved supplies, drones hummed through the sky, and the faint scent of metal and alien soil mixed in the warm air. But for Liam, nothing felt normal. His mind still replayed the image of the giantess pleading amber eyes. Every sound, the clang of machinery, the whistle of the wind, felt like a warning. At the colony command center, alarms were quiet but persistent. A blinking red light on the main screen caught Liam's attention. Curious, he stepped closer. The monitor displayed a map of the forest, the very edge where he had seen the giantess. Strange, glowing footprints appeared across the map, moving closer to the colony. Liam froze. These were not natural tracks, he realized. They were enormous, and they pulsed with faint energy, just like the footprints he had seen the night before. Colonel Thorne, a tall, stern woman with sharp eyes and a commanding voice, entered the room. "We've had reports of missing workers," she said, pointing at the same screen. 3 teams vanished near the forest edge. Equipment damaged. No bodies found. I want all patrols doubled. Something is out there. Liam swallowed hard. His heart thumped loudly. It's my fault, he thought. If I had helped her, maybe this wouldn't be happening. But he did not dare speak up. No one would understand. To them, he was just a quiet supply worker. As the day wore on, the colony tried to ignore the strange occurrences, but whispers spread fast. Workers spoke of shadows moving among the trees, glowing eyes glimpsed in the dark, and low, mournful sounds drifting through the wind. Some laughed nervously. Others, more cautious, avoided the forest entirely. Liam could not stop himself from glancing toward the edge where he had abandoned the giantess. His stomach twisted with guilt. By midday, the first incident struck. A mining outpost on the outskirts of the colony reported heavy tremors, equipment destroyed, and footprints far too large for any human. Liam's chest tightened when he saw the report. The colony's sensors had recorded something huge moving near the outpost, something intelligent. It must be her, he thought. She is not the danger. Something else is. Unable to resist, Liam left his station. He needed to see for himself. The colony's walls felt suffocating, as if they were closing in on him. He moved quickly, keeping low, following the glowing footprints that led into the forest. The air grew thick with mist, and alien plants leaned toward him, as if observing his every step. Shadows flickered across the forest floor. Every sound, the snapping of twigs, the distant rumble of rocks, made him jump. Suddenly, he stopped. Up ahead, he saw her. The giantess, her massive body hunched and bruised, moving carefully among the trees. She had freed herself, but she looked wary, almost frightened. Her amber eyes locked with Liam's for a brief second, and he felt a mix of relief and dread. She was alive, but she was not alone. A low growl echoed through the trees. Liam froze. From the shadows emerged a rival alien predator, larger than the giantess, with jagged claws and glowing red eyes. It sniffed the air, growling as it stepped closer. The giantess tensed, but she did not attack. Instead, she extended a massive hand toward Liam, a silent plea for help. Liam's heart raced. This is my chance. He scanned the forest floor for anything to defend them. His hands found a fallen branch, thick and heavy. He grabbed it like a staff, ready to stand against the predator. The forest seemed to watch, holding its breath. The predator lunged. Liam swung the branch with all his strength. The impact was small, barely slowing the creature, but gave the giantess the moment she needed to step aside. Liam realized then that brute force would not work. Humans were smaller, weaker, but clever. If he could outsmart the predator, they might survive. He grabbed a cluster of glowing spores from the ground, plants that emitted a blinding light when crushed, and hurled them toward the creature. It recoiled, hissing and thrashing. The giantess nodded at him, almost approvingly. Liam felt a surge of courage. Together, human ingenuity and alien strength could fight even the deadliest threats. Suddenly, more footprints appeared, this time smaller but numerous. Other creatures stirred in the forest, drawn by the disturbance. Liam realized the forest was alive, a predator in itself. And now, the giantess was his responsibility. His fear had brought them both into danger, but maybe his cleverness could save them. As night fell, the forest glowed faintly with the luminescent plants. The giantess crouched beside him, watching the shadows, while Liam stood alert, every sense stretched to its limit. He understood one thing clearly. The refusal to help had consequences, and now, the cost was higher than he had imagined. Above, strange clouds swirled, and a faint rumble echoed through the planet. The warning was clear, something larger was coming, and the colony might not survive it. Liam's quiet life was over. He had a choice: remain a fearful bystander, or rise to face what he had helped awaken. And deep in the shadows, unseen eyes watched them both. The giantess whispered something in a language Liam could not understand, but he felt the meaning in his bones. Hurry, the danger comes closer. The forest of Nova Terra had changed since the morning. Mist curled between the giant trees, and the glowing plants pulsed faintly, as if sensing every movement. Liam ran, heart pounding, following the giantess through narrow paths he barely recognized. Every step was heavy. The ground was uneven, and shadows seemed to twist and stretch like living creatures. Behind them, the predator from earlier moved silently, its claws scraping against rocks, leaving deep marks in the soil. Liam glanced over his shoulder, its glowing red eyes locked onto them, filled with hunger and cunning. The giantess kept moving, careful not to make noise, but her injuries slowed her. Liam felt a knot of guilt twist in his stomach. If I had helped her 2 days ago, none of this would have happened. Suddenly, the forest floor trembled beneath them. Liam stumbled, but caught himself on a glowing tree root. The giantess turned her amber eyes toward him, giving a silent nod. Together, they moved faster, weaving through the dense foliage. Liam's small size gave him an advantage. He could slip through narrow gaps, scout ahead, and spot traps the giantess could not avoid. They reached a narrow ravine. The giantess hesitated, towering above the edge, and Liam realized they could not go around. It was too steep. He spotted a fallen tree bridging the gap. "We can use that," he shouted, pointing. The giantess stepped carefully onto the makeshift bridge. Liam followed, balancing on the thin trunk, aware that one wrong move could send them both tumbling into the dark chasm below. The predator appeared at the far end of the ravine, growling with frustration. Liam gritted his teeth. He remembered the glowing spores he had used earlier. He grabbed a handful from a nearby plant and hurled them toward the predator. Light exploded, blinding it temporarily. The giantess surged forward, crossing the bridge faster than Liam expected, and together they reached the other side safely. But the forest was not done testing them. A sudden roar echoed from above. Liam looked up to see massive vines descending from the trees, twisting like snakes, aiming to trap them. The giantess tried to lift them, but her strength was limited. Liam's mind raced. He could not overpower the vines, but maybe he could trick them. He led the giantess toward a patch of phosphorescent plants and crushed them underfoot. The sudden flash startled the vines, causing them to retreat for a moment. They ran, breath ragged, toward a ridge. Liam spotted a narrow cave at the top. "We can hide there," he shouted. The giantess nodded and followed. Inside the cave, the walls glowed faintly, illuminating stalactites hanging like frozen teeth. Liam crouched, trying to steady his racing heart. The giantess lowered herself to the ground, groaning quietly, her injuries slowing her more with each step. Outside, the predator prowled. Its growls echoed in the cave entrance, and Liam realized it was clever. too clever. It had not given up. We need a plan, he thought. He scanned the cave. A pile of jagged rocks, some loose sticks, and glowing fungus grew along the walls. Liam quickly assembled a simple trap. He balanced the rocks above the cave entrance and attached them to a tripwire made of vines. When the predator entered, the rocks would fall. The predator lunged. Liam held his breath, heart thundering. The giantess moved slightly, keeping clear. The predator stepped into the cave, its claws scratching the stone floor. Liam tensed and then triggered the trap. Rocks crashed down, narrowly missing the giantess but striking the predator. It roared in pain and retreated, leaving a trail of dust and shattered stones. Liam exhaled, leaning against the cave wall. "We did it for now," he whispered. The giantess looked at him, her amber eyes softening. There was no need for words. He understood. Trust had formed between them. Humans might be small and weak compared to the giants and predators of Nova Terra, but their cleverness, their ability to think quickly and improvise, could tip the balance. Night was falling. The cave provided shelter, but Liam knew they could not stay for long. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant roar of another creature, reminded him that danger was everywhere. The predator was only one of many, and somewhere beyond the trees, unseen threats were stirring, drawn by the glowing footprints the giantess had left. Liam sat beside her, examining her injuries. He tore a strip of cloth from his shirt and wrapped her forearm carefully. The giantess leaned slightly into his touch, a silent acknowledgement of gratitude and trust. Liam realized then that his fear, his hesitation, had nearly cost both their lives. But his courage, his quick thinking, and his willingness to act now had saved them. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying an eerie hum that vibrated through the forest. Liam's eyes narrowed. The danger was far from over. The forest had tested them tonight, and they had survived, but only barely. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, and the predator would return, smarter and hungrier. And deep in the shadows, where the light of Nova Terra barely reached, other eyes glimmered. A pack of predators, larger and more cunning than the first, had caught the scent of the giantess and the human. The forest was alive, and it had marked them as prey. Liam clenched his fists, feeling a new determination surge through him. He was small, yes, but he was human. And humans had something the predators did not: cleverness, courage, and the ability to fight together. Tomorrow, the chase would continue, and Liam would be ready. The night air in the forest was thick and heavy, carrying the scent of wet earth and strange alien blooms. Liam moved cautiously beside the giantess, whose amber eyes reflected the faint glow of the phosphorescent plants around them. Her injuries slowed her, but she remained determined. Liam's mind raced. Tonight, survival would not depend on strength alone, but on human cleverness. Up ahead, a massive cliff rose sharply. At its base, a wide river glimmered faintly under the moonlight. The predator from the previous night waited there, pacing, its claws scratching the rocks, leaving deep furrows. Its glowing red eyes tracked every movement, intelligent and deliberate. Liam studied the terrain carefully. The cliff and river could be dangerous, but they also offered an advantage. He could use traps and tactics to outsmart the beast. He whispered to the giantess, "We need to work together. Follow my lead." She nodded, understanding that her strength alone would not save them this time. Liam began scanning the riverbank. He found thick vines, sharp rocks, and clusters of phosphorescent plants. Using the vines, he tied a rock to a long branch, creating a swinging snare. The glowing plants could temporarily blind the predator, giving them crucial seconds to act. The giantess watched, her massive hand brushing gently against the forest floor, testing for movement from the predator. Suddenly, the predator lunged from the shadows, faster than Liam anticipated. It swiped at him, but he ducked just in time. The giantess roared, not in anger, but in warning, and stepped in front of Liam, using her towering form to block its path. Liam grabbed a handful of glowing plants and threw them directly at the predator's eyes. The creature hissed, staggering, blinded by the sudden burst of light. "Now!" Liam shouted. The giantess pushed off a tree trunk, swinging it into the cliffside. Rocks tumbled down, narrowly missing the predator, but startling it enough to stumble backward. Liam pulled the vine trap, and a heavy rock swung across the predator's path, knocking it into the shallow river. The cold water made it howl in rage, but it was disoriented. Liam and the giantess did not pause. They ran along the riverbank, weaving between trees and leaping over fallen logs. The forest seemed alive, reacting to their movements. Branches snapped as if warning them. Glowing plants pulsed more brightly, and distant roars echoed, hinting that more predators lurked nearby. Every step was a calculation. Every action mattered. At a narrow ledge above the river, Liam spotted a natural ramp leading to a plateau. The giantess hesitated. One misstep could send her crashing into the river. Liam ran ahead, testing the path, breaking smaller rocks to make footholds, and marking safe spots for her. "Careful. Step here first, then there," he instructed. The giantess followed cautiously, trusting his judgment. Once they reached the plateau, Liam found a small cave nestled among the rocks. It offered shelter, but more importantly, it overlooked the river and gave a vantage point to watch for predators. Liam quickly barricaded the entrance with large boulders, rigging a simple alarm system using sticks and vines that would fall if anything approached. The giantess leaned against the cave wall, breathing heavily, but she was safe, at least for now. Liam looked out over the river. Moonlight reflected on the water surface, and for a brief moment, the forest seemed peaceful. But he knew better. The glowing footprints of the giantess led beyond the plateau, hinting that the danger was far from over. Somewhere in the forest, unseen eyes watched, waiting for the next opportunity. The giantess looked at Liam, her eyes conveying gratitude and understanding. Liam felt a surge of pride. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated, but cleverness, strategy, and quick thinking could match the might of giants. Tonight, they had survived because of brains over brawn. Suddenly, a faint rumble shook the plateau. Rocks slid down the cliffside, and distant trees swayed violently. Liam's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary predator. Something larger, something more intelligent, was moving. He clenched his fists. The colony might not survive if this threat reached it. He had to be ready. The giantess, sensing his resolve, stood taller despite her injuries. Together, they prepared for the next challenge. Liam gathered more glowing plants, reinforced the snare, and studied the cliff's layout. Every predator, every challenge in this forest was a test of human ingenuity and courage. Night deepened, and the wind carried whispers through the trees, warning them that the predator might return, and it would not come alone. Liam's heart beat faster, but he felt something he had never felt before: determination. Fear had brought them here, but courage, strategy, and trust would see them through. The forest was alive, the predator was clever, and the river roared below. But Liam, the shy young man who had once turned away, had grown. He had learned that humans, though small, could change the course of events with their minds, their courage, and their will to act. And somewhere deep in the shadows, beyond the plateau, something larger stirred, watching, calculating, waiting. Tomorrow, the true test would begin. Dawn broke over Terra, painting the sky in pale gold and crimson. The forest, once ominous and alive with unseen dangers, seemed momentarily calm. Liam stood at the edge of the plateau, watching the glowing footprints of the giantess fade into the mist. Her massive form rose beside him, still injured but steady, her amber eyes scanning the horizon. After nights of running, fighting, and surviving, Liam felt a strange mix of fear, pride, and anticipation. "You were right," he whispered. "Humans, maybe we're small, but we can think, we can survive." The giantess inclined her head slowly, acknowledging his words. No sound came from her, but her presence radiated trust and respect. Liam realized for the first time that this bond between human and giant was more than survival. It was partnership. Their moment of quiet was shattered by a distant rumble. Liam squinted at the horizon. Dark shapes moved among the forest trees, larger, faster, and more numerous than the predator they had fought before. His stomach tightened. He realized that the predator had not been acting alone. It had been a scout. Something far greater was coming, threatening not just them but the entire colony. The giantess stepped forward. Liam followed, adjusting his pace to match hers. They moved cautiously toward a narrow valley that offered a clear view of the approaching threat. As they crested the ridge, the truth became horrifyingly clear. A rival alien species, massive and coordinated, was advancing. Their armor-like hides shimmered, and glowing symbols ran along their limbs. They were intelligent, organized, and deadly. Liam's mind raced. The colony had no chance if these creatures reached it. But he remembered the lessons of the past few days. Strategy, ingenuity, and courage could level the odds. He turned to the giantess. "We need a plan, not just to survive, but to protect the colony." She tilted her head, understanding instantly. Together, they moved down the ridge toward a narrow gorge. Liam used rocks and fallen logs to create traps, signaling the giantess to push larger boulders onto narrow paths. They set glowing plants along the edges, their light meant to confuse and blind the approaching aliens. Liam's small size allowed him to move quickly, scouting ahead and adjusting their defenses. The giantess, towering and strong, executed the plans flawlessly, using her massive hands to move obstacles that humans could never manage alone. The aliens reached the gorge. Liam and the giantess watched, hidden but ready. When the first of them stepped into the trap, boulders fell, glowing plants burst in light, and the creatures stumbled in confusion. The giantess surged forward, using her massive arms to push fallen aliens into the traps. Liam ducked and rolled, staying out of reach while pulling vines and triggering more mechanisms. The battle was intense but brief. The aliens, clever but rigid in their patterns, were outmaneuvered by the combination of human strategy and giant strength. Slowly, they retreated into the forest, leaving the gorge littered with glowing plants and overturned boulders. Liam stood panting, adrenaline coursing through him. The giantess lowered herself beside him, exhausted but unharmed. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Liam felt the weight of the past days, the fear, the refusal, the chase, and the survival. And then, a deep understanding washed over him. The danger had forced him to grow, and in doing so, he had forged a bond that could withstand even the deadliest threats. "Thank you," Liam whispered. The giantess bowed slightly, her amber eyes warm with gratitude. She turned and began walking toward the forest's edge, pausing once to glance back at him. There was no more fear, only trust, and perhaps the beginning of a true partnership between their species. As Liam returned to the colony, he noticed the subtle changes in himself. The shy, hesitant young man who had once walked away from a plea for help had become someone who could face danger, think strategically, and act decisively. Humans might be small, but their courage, intelligence, and adaptability could tip the scales against the mightiest of foes. Back at the colony, the other workers and leaders noticed the marks left behind: collapsed boulders, scattered glowing plants, and signs of the aliens' retreat. Liam did not boast. He simply smiled quietly, knowing the truth. It had not been his strength that saved them, but his mind, his courage, and his willingness to act. And somewhere beyond the forest, the giantess disappeared into the mist, carrying with her the knowledge that not all humans were weak or timid. They were survivors, clever and brave, worthy allies. Liam looked at the horizon. The sky glowed with morning light, but he could sense that the forest still held secrets, still whispered of threats, yet unseen. He tightened his fists, feeling a new determination. Whatever came next, whatever the universe threw at him, he would face it, not as the shy young man who had once turned away, but as someone ready to meet danger with courage and intellect. The forest was quiet, but Liam knew it would not stay that way for long. Somewhere, unseen eyes watched, waiting for the next challenge. And when it came, humanity would be ready. Because humans, small though they were, had something no alien could match: ingenuity, courage, and the will to survive.